a Wisconsin Planned Parenthood clinic was attacked with a homemade bomb. The bomb went off at about 7:30 p.m. last night. Thankfully, no one was injured. There was no one at the office. And also, we don't know who left the device. But this is an ongoing trend in the country right now. As more and more extreme legislators continue to pass these anti-abortion bills, or at least propose these anti-abortion bills, right-wingers in the country become more and more motivated to do crazy things like this. And it's a little ironic that someone who describes themselves as pro-life would attempt to hurt other people with a homemade bomb.
Right. Now, again, we don't know who planted it yet, but there's a part of this story that's driving me crazy. It's being minimized by a lot of the media so far because, one, no one got hurt. Well, thank God no one got hurt, but it's a bomb either way, right? And then it's kind of weirdly downplaying a bomb. And number two, some of the stories are like, well, it's a homemade bomb. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
What does that matter?
Like, when is the last time you saw a story about a Muslim terrorist doing a bombing, but there's a sentence that goes, but it's a homemade bomb? Like, as if like, oh, okay, that makes it much better. And I think that partly what's happening here is, you know, part of it is natural. Hey, no one got hurt, so it's not as large a story. Okay, thank God, right? Another part of it is, well, we don't want to call it domestic terrorism. No one calls it domestic terrorism.
But that's exactly what it is. If this isn't domestic terrorism, what is?
It's a frickin' bomb,
it's a bomb
that they planted to kill someone for a political position that they don't agree with, and they wanted to terrorize that side. That's exactly what it is. It's domestic terrorism. But if you do that, oh, we're taking sides. But wait a minute. Every time it's a Muslim, everybody goes screaming from the rooftops, terrorism! That's not taking sides. But oh my God, if a right-winger does it, God forbid, we should actually call it what it is.
Look, minimizing this story, it has severe consequences because this is not an isolated incident. This is something that's actually happening in other states in the country. So as I mentioned, this is something that happened in Wisconsin. However, there is a state senator by the name of Wendy Davis in Texas, and her office was attacked, just a few weeks ago with a firebomb. And thankfully, no one was hurt in that situation either. It turns out that one of the employees there heard a thud at the door, opened the door, and noticed that there was a small fire at the entrance. Okay, he took the extinguisher, and thankfully, the fire was out and no one got hurt. But these are attacks that need to be taken seriously. Because if you don't take it seriously, and if there aren't harsh consequences for these kinds of things, then what happens? It just continues. People feel like they're invincible and they can do whatever they want.
In one of the cases, they think it was a Molotov cocktail, right? Now, if you start throwing Molotov cocktails around and you start planting bombs, whether they're homemade or not, is somebody going to get hurt eventually? Of course, of course. And you know what, to Anna's point in the beginning, it's not just the legislation that's being passed against abortion, et cetera. Along with it comes tremendous propaganda and hype. Oh my God, these are baby killers and et cetera, et cetera. And then it's to the point where it drives people who are already unstable. And that's what you have to worry about. I mean, for your own side, you don't have to worry that the 99% of the people who are listening to you are going to go crazy and start throwing bombs around. But you do have to be concerned that there are some unstable folks. And if you keep saying, hey, like a baby killer, baby killer, baby killer, somebody's going to go, oh my God, I got to stop the baby killer by murdering. And ironically, be in the pro-life position.
Look, that's why Tiller is dead. Let's keep it real. That's why he was gunned down. That's why when you have these right-wing organizations publishing lists of doctors that has detailed information as to where you can find that doctor, where that doctor lives, that's why it's so problematic. Because they're inciting violence. They're basically telling people, like, here are the baby killers. Here's where you can find them. If you want to use a Molotov cocktail, we're not telling you to do that. We're just giving you guys the information.
And Bill O'Reilly, as Anna's example is pointing out, called Dr. Tiller the baby killer over and over again on his program. And then after he was shot by someone who thought he was a baby killer, said, well, I can't believe it. It's outrageous that anyone would point out what I said as the reason he might have gotten shot. Except for the fact that, he's not solely responsible. And of course, the guy who did the shooting is ultimately responsible. But can you not see that might have incited him? Can you at least not pause and go, hey, you know what? Maybe I should be a little bit more careful because look at one of the possible results that I, at least in some way, contributed to. No, but the guy has no off button. Evil has no off button, right? So he's like, let's just plow forward.
You know, I looked up some numbers to find statistics on the number of hate crimes directed toward, abortion clinics, clinics that not only do abortion but have other services as well. I found out some pretty shocking statistics. Since 1977, there have been over 59,000 acts of violence at U.S. abortion clinics, 7 murders, 343 death threats, which I think is actually pretty low considering all the number of acts of violence, and also 942 acts of vandalism. And these are all numbers cited by the National Organization for Women.
Okay, so that's really interesting because whenever the right wing does an act of domestic terrorism, they say, oh, no, it's a lone person, doesn't count. So, for Muslims, they're all part of this global Islamic jihad conspiracy, right? But when right wing does it, it's not coordinated. 59,000 attacks. At what point do you call it coordinated? At what point do you say, hey, you know what? Maybe they're all doing it because of their ideology against the same target, which would make it, in the same exact sense that the global Islamic jihad is coordinated, certainly coordinated, and definitely terrorism.
And finally, when we talk about this anti-abortion legislation, I just want to show you what the trend is, because a lot of people will deny that there's this war on women, but when you look at the numbers and the number of anti-abortion legislation that's being proposed in recent years, you're seeing this huge jump. So I'll give you an example. Legislators introduced more than 1,100 provisions last year that chip away at women's reproductive rights. According to the Guttmacher Institute, and enacted 135 of them by the year's end. By contrast, there was 89 of these provisions enacted in 2010, 77 in 2009, and only 34 in 2005 under George W. Bush.
So the anti-choice, anti-women legislation is, increasing tremendously, and now all of a sudden, some of the bombing seems to have picked up as well. And go out there, a little fun game for you guys. See how many of the media outlets actually call it a case of terrorism, let alone how many media outlets even cover it. My guess is there's going to be very, very few that call it domestic terrorism. And I don't know what else you would call a bombing that's ideologically driven.